Chapter 123. Young Lady? Bai Lu was startled. Young Lady said that the Wei family is not bad? Not only not bad. Shun Miao said lightly. One fear that when father returns and knows of this marriage, there would be no reason to reject. Wei Qian to an official's young lady is indeed worthy to entrust a lifetime to. How did young lady know? Jing Zhao was puzzled. Shun Miao was in the residence all day, and even if she was outside, she would be in Guangwentang. As for the family circumstances of a certain official's family or the temperament of the D son, there was no reason to know. But to say it like this, it seemed to be very familiar, which made Jingzha scratching her head. To Shun Miao, who was in the boudoir, she naturally did not know which young master was a good match. But as Empress Shen, she knew clearly which official's son was talented and virtuous. Wei Qian was indeed a good talent, and his temperament was considered proper. Thus, when the Wei family came to propose marriage, Shun Miao would not believe that old Shen Foreign would agree to this marriage. Just at this moment, one saw Guyu jogging in from outside with a bewildered expression. Young lady sure of Rongjing Tang came to pass old Foreign's words, asking you to quickly make a trip to Rongjing Tang. The action is really fast. Shun Miao's eyes congealed and she smiled. Then let us go take a look. In Rongjing Tang, Xin Yuanbo snuggled up to old Shan Foreign's side. These days Ren Wanyun was busy taking care of Shunqing and simply left Shan Yuanbo at Rongjing Tang. Old Shan Foreign doted on this grandson and naturally treasured him a lot. She even treated Ren Wanyun in a much more amiable manner. Chen Rochio and Shan Yu were not around. Ever since Ran Wanyun took care of Shunqing in the residence, Chen Rochio temporarily took over as the head of the household. Naturally, the task of representing the Shen family to socialize with the various Furins fell onto her. Chen Rochio naturally would not let go of such a good opportunity and would bring Xin Yu out to socialize daily. She also wanted to let Xin Yu show her face in front of the various noble Furins so that in the future, Xin Yu's marriage would be more advantageous. Ren Wanyun stood at the lower side of the hall, and her eyes were deep, not knowing what she was thinking. Shun Miao was brought to Rongjing Tang by old Shan Foreign's maid, Shi'er, and greeted old Shan Foreign. These days, she was grounded and had to copy Buddhist scriptures in the Shen family's ancestral hall and kneel before the memorial tablet. Most likely old Shan Foreign did not like her and did not let her come over to pay her respects. Seeing old Shan Foreign again was before she was grounded. Fifth girl, recently copying scriptures in the ancestral hall, is your heart at peace? Old Shan Foreign asked. Upon hearing this old woman's genteel speech, Shun Miao almost laughed in her heart. If one were to say that the elders in the Shen residence were disrespectful, then old Shan Foreign would bear the brunt of it. But at this time she would still say such restless words. She smiled gently, as Zuzu wish. That is good. Old Shan Foreign pretentiously coughed lightly, and Fuer quickly handed over the hot tea. She lifted the teacup cover and took a sip before looking at Shun Miao. Even though the matter in the past was not your fault, it was because of you. Moreover, your temperament is too stubborn, so I punished you to copy scriptures. Do you blame me in your heart? Shun Miao wouldn't dare. I know you're a sensible person. Old Shan Foreign looked at her with satisfaction. You are so sensible and also my Shen family's young lady, so naturally I will dote on you. Seeing that you have reached the age of marriage, today the assistant minister of the Legislative Bureau, the Wei family came over to propose marriage for the D son of the Wei family, and the one they seek is you. Do you think that it is not bad? If it was not that it was not the right time, Shin Miao would have laughed out loud. For a person like old Shen Foreign, most likely her lifetime of experience would be in that brothel. How would there be an elder in a family who would ask their granddaughter, do you think that it is not bad? One did not know what old Shen Foreign was thinking. Chapter 124. Parents' orders and matchmakers' words. Shin Miao smiled. Naturally, father and mother will worry about this granddaughter's marriage. You this girl. Old Shan Foreign saw that she had bumped into a soft rebuff and almost flew into a rage. When she heard Ren Wanyun's soft cough at the side to remind her, she slowly changed into a calm expression and said, You this girl is really too capricious. Originally you adore. Then forget it. Now seeing that you seem to have sobered up a lot these days, it seems that you know the propriety. This assistant minister of the Legislative Bureau's family is considered to be well matched with us. That young master of the Wei family, Wei Qian, is also a dignified person and is an outstanding talent in both literature and martial arts. Even if your father was here, he would not say anything bad about this marriage. You have been brought up to this age, and this is the first time such a family came to propose marriage. If one do not grasp the opportunity well, that young master of the Wei family will turn around and become someone else's husband. Even though old Shun Foreign was not good as an elder, her matchmaking skills were not bad. Most likely it was because she was a songstress and knew that young females love to be charming. Thus she only said that Wei Qian was a good person in everyone's heart. Even though Shin Miao knew that old Shin Foreign did not lie, and that Wei Qian was indeed a good person. Even so, Shin Miao was still unmoved and said lightly, "Young Master Wei is indeed not bad, but it is not what I wish for. Grandmother better forget it. My marriage will naturally be decided by my father and mother." You. After being contradicted time and time again, old Shin Foreign did not have any patience and finally said angrily, "Are you complaining that this grandmother is interfering in your marriage and extending my hand too far?" This granddaughter did not say so. The implied meaning was that this was what you said yourself. Old Shin Foreign was so angry that she was about to go crazy. Now the unruly Shen Miao was covered with thorns all over her body and could not move at all, making one's heart ache from suffocating. Old Shin Foreign hated the first household but was also afraid of Shin Xian. Thus for so many years, even though her heart was angry, she could only hold it in and not get close to Shen Miao and put on a serious but fair grandmother act. She could not hit Shin Miao as this would be discovered by Shin Xian, and at most he would reprimand her. Thus she had been watching coldly as Ran Wanyun and Shin Roqiu raised Shen Miao to become a cripple. Even though it was said that one would die from flattery, but it was rarely discovered by others. In the end, no one knew what happened, but one day, Shen Miao, who had been raised to a cripple, suddenly became quick-witted. Not only was she quick-witted, her temperament also became impervious to everything. She said angrily, "Do you still have any respect for your superiors?" Shin Miao felt bored. With old Shun Foreign's patience and determination, if she was thrown into the inner palace, she would not be able to survive for more than 2 days. She had seen too many powerful females in her past life, and old Shin Foreign was such a short-sighted and did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. She really did not want to put her in her eyes. "I ask you again." Old Shin Foreign still remembered the purpose of today and looked at Shin Miao as she asked, "What is your intention in this marriage?" "I do not agree." Shin Miao answered, "Good, good, good." After saying good 3 times in a row, Fuer and Shier quickly went forward to caress old Shin Foreign's chest lest she fainted from anger. Old Shin Foreign laughed in anger. "Since it is like this, it seems that you are not truly repentant. From today onwards, you will move out of your courtyard and live in the Shin family's ancestral hall. Recite scriptures every day and see if your unruly temperament can be ground down. To live in the ancestral hall, one would have to face the ancestors' memorial tablets every day. For a delicate young lady, one feared that she would be scared out of her wits. Moreover, the ancestral hall was located in a cold place, and after staying for a few days, one might get sick. Old Shin Foreign said those words in a fit of anger, and after finishing, there was a flash of pride in her eyes as she looked at Shin Miao, most likely waiting for Shin Miao to beg for mercy. But Shin Miao did not even frown and said, "Yes, this granddaughter will go back to pack up and immediately rush over." Chapter 125. That light sentence almost choked old Shin Foreign to the point that she almost fainted. And after Shin Miao finished saying those words, she really said her goodbyes to old Shin Foreign and left. This evil girl. He has no respect for the law. Old Shin Foreign was flustered, and because of her lowly birth, she could not say any genteel words and actually scolded, "Little slut," as expected of that old bitch's blood. The old slut that she mentioned was naturally Shin Xian's biological mother, Shun Miao's biological grandmother. Ren Wanyun raised her head and looked out of the door. Shin Miao's figure had long disappeared. "Did you not say that she would definitely agree to this matter?" Old Shin Foreign pointed the spearhead at Ren Wanyun. "How is it agreeing to her appearance? What should we do next?" Not only old Shinforen was puzzled, even Ran Wanyuan felt it was strange in her heart. With Wei Qian's conditions, even Shan Qing would find it hard to not be swayed. But Shan Miao actually flatly refused without even thinking about it. She muttered, "It must be that she is still concerned about Prince Ding and pretended not to care on the surface but had not given up. Otherwise, she wouldn't have rejected such a family." She didn't even feel shy when a girl heard about her own marriage. Then what to do now? Old Shinforen said in a bad mood, if she does not relent on this side, how to write a letter to Shan Exile. In their original plan, they only needed to coax Shan Miao and let Shan Miao reveal that she had a sweetheart in her letter to Shan Exile. After that, before Shan Exile returned to the capital, the marriage was arranged. The leopard cat changed the crown prince, and the brides of the two households changed positions. Afterwards, all the mistakes would be thrown onto Shan Miao alone. Once a female married, their temperament would be gone and Shan Miao would be afraid in her heart, so she would not carelessly speak about it. Shan Xian would not know that Shan Miao and Shan Qing had exchanged marriage and thought that Shan Miao admired the young master of the Huang family. Huang Dexing liked men. Other than those close to the Huang family, no one else knew about this. From the outside, Huang Dexing seemed like a good man. But now Shan Miao had shown her dissatisfaction with the Wei family's marriage, not to mention writing a letter to Shan Xian. If Shan Miao herself did not agree, then many of the plans would not be able to be played, and there would be a lot of trouble. Since the soft approach won't work, I'll use the hard approach, Ren Wanyun said fiercely. Didn't mother lock her up in the ancestral hall? Then we can say whatever we want about the matters outside. In short, we must settle this marriage as soon as possible and get married as soon as possible so that she can be replaced. Otherwise, even if the wedding night could be coaxed, Shan Qing's stomach would not be able to be coaxed. Since Shan Qing couldn't see anything, he had to finish it quickly. Old Shinforen looked at Ran Wanyun and did not speak. Although she also wanted the first household to be unlucky, if she really used force and was discovered by Shan Xian, she would not be able to bear the consequences. With one look, Ran Wanyun knew what old Shinforen was thinking about. She gritted her teeth and said, "Mother, do not worry. I will make arrangements after this. Anyway, they won't be able to trace it back to Mother." Since the words were said to this point, old Shinforen no longer put up a front and said, "Then do as you say." In the 100-flower tower, the music was lingering and there was a tall pavilion. A handsome youth was casually dressed in purple, as if there was a faint light from the 9 heavens. His eyelashes were extremely long and his pair of peach blossom eyes were extremely beautiful, but when he looked at people, there was a faintly discernible coldness and cruelty. Coo. A light cough broke the silence in the pavilion. The well-dressed gentleman placed his folding fan in front of his chest and made a gesture of asking for mercy. "Apologies for being late. You also know how to be late. Really fresh." The purple-clad youth glanced at him. Su Mingfeng touched his nose. This good friend hated not being punctual, and it was fortunate that he had a deep friendship with him. If it was other people, one feared that Xie Jingxing would have brushed his sleeves and would not wait for an incense stick of time. It is really that Wei Qian is not his usual self today. Su Mingfeng smiled bitterly. "You also know the young master of the assistant minister of the Secretariat's family. He is also quite pitiful. He already had a young lady in his heart, but the family brought up another young lady's marriage because of him. The other party even accepted his birthday invitation, so one feared that this marriage would be settled soon. Wei Qian's heart was not in a good mood, so he pulled me to drink, but..." Su Mingfeng pointed to himself. "I am currently seriously ill and cannot drink, so I could only persuade for an hour." "Boring," Xie Jingxing said with a cold face. It was obvious that Su Mingfeng spent so much time to do such a boring thing and was late for a long time, which made him very unhappy. Su Mingfeng felt helpless in his heart. Xie Jingxing looked cynical and always had a smile on his face, but in fact his heart was very vengeful and was especially picky. One did not know what was not going well these few days, as his expression was also so indifferent. As long as Xie Jingxing looked at people calmly, Su Mingfeng would feel goosebumps all over his body. Actually, Wei Qian was really unlucky. The wife that the family picked for him was not good, but she was an idiot. Previously, everyone in Mingqi knew that she chased after Empress Ding, so Wei Qian naturally had no choice but to marry her. He quickly tried to find a topic of conversation, hoping to arouse Xie Jingxing's interest. You should know who she is, right? Shen Xian's daughter, Shun Miao. To be able to marry Wei Qian, it should be considered as a great fortune. You say. Xie Jingxing suddenly opened his mouth and slowly asked, Shen Miao? Chapter 126. Shen Miao? Correct. Su Mingfeng was somewhat surprised by Xie Jingxing's attitude and suddenly thought of something before smiling mischievously. Isn't that the young lady that you saved at the academy examinations? Speaking of which, she has some courage and is not too ugly. Wei Qian, this brat is obviously one who does not know how fortunate he is. He saw Xie Jingxing in deep thoughts and could not help but be surprised. Hey, could it be that you really fancy that young lady? Xie Jingxing sneered and swept a cold glance at Su Mingfeng. You are very idle? Of course I am idle. Su Mingfeng frowned. I am currently seriously ill and cannot attend court, so I spend all day in the residence playing with cats and dogs. You do not appear often recently and are very close to that physician Gao Yang. Are you hiding something from me? If one were to say that their friendship was not shallow when they were young, but as they grew up, Xie Jingxing became more mysterious. Even though he was reminded about the matter of the Su family, sometimes Su Mingfeng felt that he knew nothing about Xie Jingxing. Xie Jingxing threw a fruit to him. Eat yours? It was obvious that he did not intend to continue this topic. Su Mingfeng's eyes flashed and his lips revealed a bitter smile, but he did not say anything. Not long after the Shin family received the Wei family's Gung invitation, Run Wan Yuan also let Xiang Lan invite Shen Gui to Kai Yun Yuan. Ever since Shan Qing's matter, there was a rift between Shen Gui and Ren Wan Yuan, and both of them did not speak much. These days their relationship was as cold as ice. This time it was Run Wan Yuan who took the initiative to admit defeat. Xiang Lan and Kaiju greeted Shen Gui, who came in, and Ren Wan Yuan sat in front of the table with some melancholy in her eyes. What is the matter with you again? Shen Gui's tone was still very stiff. In the beginning, because of Shen Qing, Run Wan Yuan scolded him for being heartless, which made Shen Gui extremely unhappy. Even though he appreciated that Ren Wan Yuan was able to manage the internal and external matters well, but he was not a broad-minded person, not to mention that he was scolded by his own wife like a shrew. Master is here. Run Wan Yuan lazily glanced at him, and her face was very haggard. She had always been astute and high-spirited, and never had such an appearance. Shen Gui's heart softened when he saw this scene. Knowing that Ren Wan Yuan doted on Shen Qing, these days she had put in a lot of effort because of Shen Qing. After all, she was his wife and face must be given. He then berated Xiang Lan and Kaiju. Why is Foreign so haggard? How did you all take care of Master? Ren Wan Yuan also heard the gentleness in Shen Gui's tone, and her heart was delighted. She held her forehead and admitted defeat. It is not related to them. It is me who is worried about Qing'er. These days, I haven't been able to eat well, and I can't sleep well at night. My heart is very sad. Since Qing'er's matter has already happened, it is useless to think more about it. It is better for you to recuperate your body, as the residence still needs you to manage the household. Shen Gui looked at Ren Wan Yuan. Previously, it was Ren Wan Yuan who managed the household, so naturally there were many conveniences for him. He used the Zhonggong's money to give gifts, and Ren Wan Yuan was also able to handle the accounts so that no mistakes could be found. Now that Ren Wan Yuan had to take care of Shen Qing, Chen Rochio was temporarily taking over the management of the family. Naturally, it was not as convenient as before to handle matters. And those advantages were all taken by the third household. Thus Shen Gui was not happy in his heart. Run Wan Yuan clenched her teeth. Shen Gui was only thinking about his official career and did not care about Shen Qing at all. She said, I also think so, but Qing'er's body cannot be separated from others, and I am worried. So it is better to marry her to the Huang family. When Shen Gui mentioned the matter, his gentle tone became stiff again. A woman's view is that hair is long but knowledge is short. Qing'er's current situation, it is better to find a good family to marry. The Huang family has a big business and Qing'er would be the legal wife, but you do not agree. Chapter 127. Ren Wan Yuan sneered in her heart. As a father, Shun Gui was really ruthless. Huang Dexing was such a person, and yet Shun Gui was able to say such words about a good family. Even though she already knew that the person beside her pillow was a cold person who prioritized benefits, but now thinking about it, Ran Wanyuan still felt a chill. But at this moment was not the time for her to think about it. She wiped her eyes and said, "Master is right. It was me who thought wrongly, and it was me who stayed in the inner courtyard all day and could not see such big matters. The family that Master picked is naturally the best. I was initially not willing for Qing'er to marry over, but now feel that this is not necessarily a bad thing for Qing'er." Xin Gui was first surprised for a moment before looking at her incredulously. "You agree?" Renwan Yun valued Xin Qing more than anything else, so how could she easily agree to this marriage? One had to know that Huang Dexing was interested in males.
Yes.
A sorrowful expression appeared on Ran Wanyun's face. With Qing'er's current appearance, which good family would want her in the future? I thought about it, and only felt that the Huang family was not bad. At least after marrying over, Qing'er would not lack clothes and food. If she really does not live well, that is also her fate. Finishing, she pulled her sleeves and cried softly. Seeing Ren Wanyun like this, Xingui's heart was at ease and somewhat believed in Ran Wanyun's words. Now Shun Qing was no longer a virgin, and the Huang family only needed a daughter to sit on the position of young Huang foreign to deceive the eyes of the world. If Shun Qing married to Huang Dexing, she would not have to worry about food and clothing for the rest of her life, and it was considered the best ending. Even though as a woman, she might not be able to achieve a perfect relationship in her entire life, but after that kind of thing happened, who would want her? Thinking of this, Shun Gui sighed and walked to Ran Wanyun's side before patting her back and comforting her. "It is good that you have thought it through. Qing'er is after all my daughter, and I will not harm her. Huang Darren and I have some friendship, so I will let him take care of Qing'er. If Qing'er marries over, she would definitely not suffer grievances." Ran Wanyun's heart was filled with disdain for Shangui's pompous speech, but on the surface there was a look of reliance. Then trouble master to mention to Huang Darren, and let the Huang family send people over to exchange for the Gung invitation. So fast? Shen Gui was somewhat surprised. Now that Qing'er is in such a state, how can we delay? Ren Wanyun sighed. The longer it drags on, one fear that others will find some clues. After all, Qing'er had not gone out for a long time. Marrying into the Huang family would at least be able to cover up a little. Moreover, Ren Wanyun caressed her chest. A long night is fraught with dreams. Ever since Qing'er's accident, I am always afraid. Seeing her palpitating appearance, Xingui pondered for a moment before saying, "What you said is reasonable. Qing'er's matter cannot be dragged on. As such, I will write a letter to Lord Huang to mention this matter. If the Gung card is exchanged, it is not impossible to discuss the date. Everything depends on Master," Ren Wanyun said meekly. Xingui said a few more words before leaving in satisfaction. Today, Ren Wanyun was submissive, admitted her mistake, and did what he said, which made his heart feel much better. The haze of the past few days was swept away, and his steps seemed to be filled with success. After Shangui left Kaiyun Yuan, Xiang Lan closed the door outside before speaking in a panic. "Foreign, is it really good to hide this matter from Master?" Ren Wanyun let Xin Gui think that Shun Qing was really willing to marry Huang Dexing, but did not tell her that Xin Qing and Xin Miao had the intention to change the marriage. As such, Xin Qing would be married to the genuine virtuous Wei Qian, and Xin Miao would be married to the licentious Huang Dexing. Naturally, this matter could not be known by Xin Gui. No matter what the ending was, for a person like Xin Gui, as long as it could implicate his career, he would not take the risk. But Ren Wanyun could not let her daughter step into the fire pit. Chapter 128. Naturally hide it from him. He is so heartless to want to use my Qing'er to exchange for his future, and did not even ask if I am willing or not. Ren Wanyun sneered. Her husband's indifference and her daughter's accident had made her look old in this period of time. It was as if a few more wrinkles had appeared overnight, and on the originally kind face, there was only a sinister look left. This matter must be foolproof. Even if he were to discover it in the future, it would be too late. But would this not be disadvantageous to second young lady? Kaiju asked. Even if the marriage is successful, How would the Huang and Wei family be willing to know the truth? Do not worry. Ren Wanyun held the paperweight in her hands. The Huang family only want a name. It is the same no matter which one it is. As for the Wei family, if they dare to make a sound, I will accuse the Wei family of raping an innocent commoner. There will always be a way to make them unable to speak. Moreover, her face instantly became sinister. What is wrong with my Qing'er? Could it be that she cannot be compared to Shan Miao, that little slut? It is the Wei family's fortune to exchange for my Qing'er. Upon mentioning Shan Miao, Ren Wanyun's entire body trembled with hatred. Xianglan and Kaiju immediately lowered their heads and dared not speak anymore. After a while, Ren Wanyun's voice sounded, but at the moment, the most important thing is to quickly complete the two marriages. It must be done before eldest brother and eldest Saw return to the capital. Eldest master will only return to the capital at the end of the year. There are still a few more months. Xianglan took a step forward and reminded, it is that fifth young lady's character that is too rude. If she were to know that there is a private engagement, one fear that she would create a big fuss and perhaps escape from the Shen residence in the night. What can be done at that time? Escape? Ren Wanyun said fiercely. Also need to see if she has this ability. Is she not locked up in the ancestral hall and grounded? From today onwards, lock up that ancestral hall for me. She actually wanted to lock up Shen Miao alive. Xianglan and Kaiju were shocked and both lowered their heads. Even though in the past the Shen residents suppressed Shen Miao, it was all done on the surface and one would not be able to see it at all. This was the first time that he had used such a thunderous method on Shen Miao. He had almost shed all pretense of cordiality without any scruples. That little slut has a lot of tricks up her sleeves. We can only lock her up. When the time comes, we'll send a cup of wine to the sedan chair. Heaven and earth won't respond. The Huang family isn't easy to deal with either. Look at her after a few days of training. Ren Wanyun did not conceal the viciousness in her words. If it is not possible, there is still His Highness Qin Wang, she said with a proud smile. The winter days were getting colder and reports of success came from the northwest desert. The army led by Shen Xian was meritorious in repelling the enemy and fought bravely, causing the enemy to be terror-stricken. The people in the Ding capital naturally guessed that when they returned to the capital at the end of the year, Shen Xian would definitely be rewarded with numerous merits. The glory of the Shen family really made others jealous, but it was all achieved through real swords and spears on the battlefield. Now that the Xiongnu had not retreated and there were neighboring countries eyeing them covetously, the imperial family of Ming-Chi naturally wanted to put the Shen family in an important position, but in the future, it was hard to say. Cooking the hound after the cunning hare was killed was something that the imperial family loved to do. After all, a new emperor would have a new generation of ministers. Especially with the current 9 princes of the Ming-Chi imperial family, no one dared to underestimate the undercurrents that were surging in private. If one were to say that there was any recent hot topic in the Ding capital, it would be the Shen family's intention to marry. But one did not know why this matter was spread so mysteriously. One only knew that there were 2 families that came to propose marriage. One was the assistant minister of the Legislative Bureau's Wei family, and the other was the supervisor of the junior residence's Huang family. These 2 families were prestigious, and the 2 young masters were considered young talents and could be said to be a match for the Shen family in terms of social status. Shen Yu still went to Guangwentang as usual, thus everyone guessed that the ones who were going to marry would be the D-daughter of the first household, Shen Miao, and the D-daughter of the second household, Shen Qing. Chapter 129. Forget about Shen Qing, but Shen Miao's identity was somewhat subtle. Among the current military officials, only the Marquis of Lin and could be compared to her. But the Marquis of Lin and seemed to be a smart person, and other than the Emperor's orders, he would usually defend the capital. Shen Xian would be stationed at the border all year round. With a father like Shen Xian who held great power, no matter who Shen Miao married, it would mean that the husband's family would be able to get help. The eyes of the imperial family of Ming-Chi were all watching, and it was fortunate that the 2 people who came to propose were civil officials and would not be able to get involved with military officials. Moreover, the Wei family and the Huang family's names were pleasant to hear, But they were on the path of moderation and temporarily did not get involved in the muddy waters of the fight for the heir apparent. So this marriage, as compared to others, especially the rumor of Shun Miao being in love with Prince Ding, was much smoother. In Guangwantang, Yi Peilan asked Shin Yu, that older and younger sister of yours, are they really going to marry? They actually did not even come to Guangwantang. Ever since Wulong Temple, Shin Miao and Shun Qing had not left the residence, much less come to Guangwantang. Shin Miao was grounded, and Shun Qing needed to recuperate. Shin Yu smiled. I also do not know. Mother is mysterious about it. Most likely so. But speaking of which, your older and younger sister are rather lucky. Jiang Shaoxian thought about it, especially Shin Miao. This gentleman Wei and gentleman Huang, both of them are not bad. Why did it not fall on your head? Shin Yu pretended to be angry. I still want to stay in the residence for a few more years. I have not thought about marriage. But there was a nod in her heart. Indeed, at their age, they would definitely start to care about their own marriage. But in the Shin residence, Shun Miao was younger than her by 2 years, and now that they were engaged, she was left behind. Forget about Shun Qing, as she was a person whose body was spoiled, but when she knew that Shun Miao might be able to find a good home, Shin Yu's heart was filled with unspeakable jealousy. Most likely, she could not bear to see Shin Miao doing well, especially Shin Miao, who was not as good as her in every aspect. Now that there was a family like the Wei family who took the initiative to propose marriage, it meant that Shin Miao herself was not bad. If it was not for Qin Roqiu persuading her, one feared that Shan Yu would continue to drill into this bull's horn and refuse to come out. Yu. Bai Wei tapped her forehead. You are in the prime of your life. Of course, you have to plan for yourself. So, she pointed her chin to the other side. What do you think of him? She was talking about Kai Lin. Shin Yu followed Bai Wei's line of sight, and Kai Lin felt Shan Yu's gaze. He turned his head and froze for a moment, then awkwardly avoided it. Shin Yu's eyes suddenly turned red as she bit her lower lips tightly. The youth who was previously infatuated with her was now avoiding her like a snake or scorpion. For such an arrogant person like Shin Yu, she naturally felt a great humiliation. Kai Lin avoided Shan Yu's accusing gaze, and his heart was somewhat worried. Ever since he was taught a lesson by Shin Miao in the academy examinations, he would feel an unknown fear whenever he saw Shin Miao. It was as if it was a natural fear of danger that made him want to avoid Shin Miao. Moreover, that day Xie Jingxing seemed to have helped Shin Miao out of trouble. Kai Lin was considered an overlord in the Ding capital, but he could not overpower Xie Jingxing. So naturally he would not take the initiative to go against Xie Jingxing. No matter if Xie Jingxing's help that day was intentional or not, Kai Lin would not take the initiative to provoke Shin Miao. And on that day, Shin Yu did not even look at him once from beginning to end, which made this youth's blazing heart to completely cool down. Seeing Shin Yu's awkwardness, Yi Peilan pursed her lips and diverted the topic. But in another half a month, it will be your family's old foreign's birthday. One think that I should go and pick some gifts. Old Shun foreign's birthday every year would be incomparably glorious. This kind of extravagance could even be compared to the imperial family. Old Shun foreign's eyesight was shallow and felt that the grander the birthday, the more radiance there would be. Every year many officials would be invited over, so Shin Gue and Shun Wan were naturally happy to see it happen. This way, they would have a better relationship with their colleagues. Chapter 130. For this kind of birthday celebration, naturally a gift must be received. One think that Yi Peilan and the rest would be present at the birthday celebration next month. After all, at this time of the year, all the better officials in Mingqi would be invited by the Shin family. Yes. Bai Wei seemed to remember. I almost forgot about this matter. Luckily Peilan reminded me. Yuer, what gift did you prepare for old Shin foreign? As a talented female in the capital, Shin Yu would naturally give old Shin foreign face at the birthday banquet every year. If one were to say that what Shin Qing took out was expensive, then what Shin Yu took out was unique and exquisite. Only Shin Miao would always give something that made one laugh till their teeth fell off. It is only embroidered a portrait, Shin Yu said modestly. Now that you mention it, I start to be curious. Jiang Shaoxian said nastily. Then what would that fifth younger sister of yours give? Could it be that she was busy embroidering the wedding dress and completely forgot about old foreign's birthday gift? When Feng and Ning, who was lying on the table, heard it, She coldly snorted and got up to leave the table. Pei Lan and the rest's words also fell into the ears of Pei Lang, who was tidying up the things on the stage. These days, he naturally heard the news of Xin Miao's engagement but had a strange feeling. That young female's eyes were like a beast's. To let her hide in the inner courtyard so early, would she know? At the same time, the object of everyone's discussion, Xin Miao, was arranging the chess pieces in front of her in the ancestral hall. The wind in the ancestral hall was cold and the floor was made of greenish-gray stone slabs. When one kneeled down, one would be able to feel the chill in the seams of one's kneecap. Jingzhe and Guyu had brought some soft cushions, but those cushions did not have any effect. It was Xin Miao who instructed them to boil some herbs and place them in the corners of the room. With a little smoke, it would be able to drive away the cold and prevent the body from getting sick. Jingzhe and Guyu initially did not believe it, but after seeing that the herbal soup was really effective, they even asked Xin Miao where did she get this secret recipe from. Xin Miao only said that she heard it from others, but she herself knew that it was something that she learnt during her years as a hostage in the Qin country. The weather was too cold and there was not enough money, so one could only find the cheapest method to warm up and get rid of the moisture in one's body. Now the things in the ancestral hall were really nothing. Young ladies still care about playing chess. Jingzhe stomped her feet. Xin Miao arranged the chess pieces in front of her in a straight line. On the chessboard, the originally well-arranged chess pieces were arranged so that the black was black and the white was white, and there was no order to it. Chun Tao had Mo Qing bring the message over. Jingzhe saw that Xin Miao did not speak and continued. Second foreign want to change the marriage between you and eldest young lady. That young master of the Huang family is a cut sleeve, so what can be done? How can young lady still have the mood to play chess? One thought of it was a good marriage, but of rejected old, and was in Shan's proposal and of Yao. But even if it was like this, Chun Tao still found out that the Shun family had already agreed to this marriage behind Shan Miao's back. It was just that the people in the western courtyard did not know about it, which meant that other than Xin Miao, everyone knew that Xin Miao was going to marry. If she married, it would be, Shi Qin would be, Xin, married, Xin of, Xin Shan of the Xin of Shon of. When the few maids heard this, they almost went crazy. Mo Qing also said that if Shun Miao was willing, he could bring Shan Miao to escape. Mo Qing was previously a person of the pugilistic world, and naturally did not know that it was easy to escape. Once one escaped, it meant that the matters behind could be fabricated, and no one would know the truth. Moreover, Shun Miao did not have any intention to escape from the start, thus she flatly rejected the words. If it is not possible, at least let Mo Qing help young lady to bring the message to master. This matter is also hidden from master. They want to take advantage of master, not return to the capital to let young lady get married. Like this, the rice is cooked and nothing can be changed. Guyu also advised. She knew that Xin Miao had her own ideas, but since she did not say anything, the few of the maids could only worry for Xin Miao. Chapter 131. What message? Xin Miao lightly said, currently the western courtyard is guarded by Ran Wan Yun's people, and even a fly would not be able to fly out. If I were to escape, what would happen to the rest of the people in the courtyard? Even though I am not a benevolent person, there are some people that father and mother specially left for me. Do you believe that once I leave, Ran Wan Yun would immediately kill everyone in the courtyard to silence them? Jingzhe and Guyu were startled. Moreover, do you think that it is that simple to pass a message? There are people guarding here all day, and their intention is to lock me up. Do you think that they would leave a loophole for me to take advantage of? Then you all are looking down on this second Shin of mine. Ren Wan Yun's mind was not something to be feared in Shen Miao's eyes, but in this world, a mother was strong. For Shen Qing's happiness, Ren Wan Yun would naturally do her utmost to complete this matter. On this matter, Ren Wan Yun's bet was not small. After all, the matter of exchanging the marriage was not discussed with Xin Gue, and it was her own idea. If it was successful, naturally everyone would be happy, but if it failed, one feared that Ran Wan Yun would no longer have a place to stand in the second household. But young lady, are we just going to let it go like this? Jingzhe anxiously said, this servant will risk my life, and not let young lady marry that cut sleeve. Can you all see this chess game? Shun Miao did not speak and only pointed to the chessboard on the table. On the chessboard, the white and black pieces were arranged in 2 rows and were clearly separated. It was somewhat strange. This servant does not understand chess, and also do not understand what kind of game this is. After a long while, Guyu carefully answered, "What did you see?" Shun Miao asked. Jingzhe boldly answered, "The white and black pieces are arranged together, and it is very clear." Yes. A light flashed in Shun Miao's eyes. This game of chess is to place all the chips on the table. You know my chess pieces, and I also know your chess pieces. The final winner would depend on one's own ability. Jingzhe and Guyu looked at each other and did not understand Shun Miao's meaning. Renwan Yun thought that she knew all my chess pieces, but in fact it is not so. She took out a black piece from behind and placed it beside the white piece. I still have one last move. Old Foreign's birthday is next month, she suddenly asked. Exactly, Jingzhe answered. Heard from Chuntao that Second Foreign's intention is to announce young lady's marriage during Old Foreign's birthday banquet. We have to do it before father returns to the capital. Shin Miao smiled. That's right, there are still a few months before the end of the year. One feared that it would be too late. Guyu was deeply worried. Really? Shin Xin should have returned to the court at the end of the year. Unfortunately, in the 68th year of Ming Qi, because Shin Xin defeated the enemy in the northwest region, the enemy fled and surrendered in advance. The Shin family's army brought the surrender letter and returned to the Ding capital a few months earlier. Speaking of which, it was a coincidence, or perhaps it was because Shin Xin wanted to express his filial piety. Shin Xin would not be in the capital for Old Shan Foreign's birthday. After a few times, people would say that Shin Xin was unfilial. Thus, on Old Shan Foreign's 70th birthday in the 68th year of Ming Qi, Shin Xin returned to the capital in advance. On that day, Shin Xin suddenly returned to the residence, and Old Shan Foreign was having a banquet with guests in the residence, but Shun Miao did not attend. Naturally, it was because she was hiding in the residence of Prince Ding. Shin Xin originally wanted to come back to enjoy the happiness of a family, but knew that his daughter did not care about etiquette and went to the residence of Prince Ding to demand for her. But because of Fu Xiaoyi's hypocritical warmth, she turned a deaf ear to Shan Xion's words and even used death to force her to marry Prince Ding. Now thinking about it, it was a sin. Shin Xion rushed back and saw such an unfilial daughter who dragged the Shun family into the abyss with no path of return. This lifetime was not the previous lifetime. She did not escape the Shin family because of Prince Yu, and also did not blindly fall in love with Fu Xiaoyi's appearance. If Shin Xion came back and saw a different daughter, would she be able to redeem a little of the sins of the previous lifetime? Father had always respected Old Foreign. Shun Miao said lightly. Yes. Jingzhe answered. Old Shin Foreign was a songstress and was good at acting. In the beginning, she played the role of a loving mother flawlessly. When the old general was still alive, he could not pick out any mistakes at all. Generals valued relationships, and Shin Xion knew how to repay kindness. In his early years, he had received Old Shun Foreign's kindness, and he was unable to think that this old woman had a vicious heart under her skin. Second Shin, this time it was a bargain for me. Shun Miao said with a smile, and her pair of bright eyes were astonishingly bright. Just nice. Tear it all together for the world to see. Chapter 132. On the 3rd day of the 11th month, it was a bright sunny day. It was rare to have such a good day in winter, and coincided with Old Shan Foreign's 70th birthday banquet. The general's mansion had been cleaned up inside and out, and the government had also taken out money to buy new things. The birthday banquet was naturally held in the East Courtyard. The environment of the East Courtyard was quiet and serene. The flowers were trimmed in a picturesque manner, and the maids were dressed in clean and tidy dresses. Their speech and mannerisms were unconventional, and they were all delicate and well-behaved. As soon as Lingren walked in, he felt that this was indeed the style of a wealthy family. Old Shin Foreign was sitting high up in the main hall of Rongjingtang, and there were already a number of Furins and young ladies coming to and fro to give their greetings. The Shin family was after all a first-class military aristocratic family in Ming Qi, Thus, the high-ranking officials and noble people would come over to bribe them. Ren Wanyun was also busy greeting the guests. Even though Qin Roqiu was temporarily managing the family, but in the past old Shan Foreign's birthday banquets were all handed over to Ren Wanyun to manage. As for dealing with these noble Furins, Ren Wanyun could do it better than Qin Roqiu. Qin Roqiu at the end had the airs of a scholarly family, but Ren Wanyun was different. She responded appropriately, and in a moment Rong Jingtang was filled with laughter. Xin Yuanbo snuggled up to old Qin Foreign as he ate the honey lactose, and the Furins below complimented him from time to time that he was so smart at such a young age and would definitely have great achievements in the future. Old Qin Foreign beamed with joy when she heard it, and even Ren Wanyun's heart that was clouded by Xin Qing was swept away because of these compliments. It was Qin Roqiu who felt uncomfortable when she saw that everyone was praising Shen Yuanbo and Shen Yuan, who was on duty outside. The thing that the third household feared the most was talking about sons. Everyone knew that Qin Roqiu had been married to Xin Wan for many years, and other than Xin Yu, she did not have any sons. But Shen Wan did not have any interest in other females. Old Qin Foreign wanted to give Shen Wan a few more concubines to spread out, but was rejected by Shen Wan. Old Shen Foreign thus vented her anger on Qin Roqiu, and compared to Qin Roqiu, Ren Wanyun was obviously more favored by old Qin Foreign. But why didn't I see Qin family's eldest young lady and fifth young lady today? Foreign said with a smile. Ren Wanyun was in charge of receiving these Furins, and Shen Yu naturally went to get close to those noble young ladies. He took them to tea and refreshments in the garden. But today he still did not see Shen Miao and Shen Qing. When Ren Wanyun and old Shan Foreign heard it, their expressions sank at the same time and Qin Roqiu's lips curled up. Shen Qing's body had not recovered and now she was able to see others rationally, but she kept saying that she must dismember Shan Miao's body into 10,000 pieces. However, these words could not be heard by outsiders. These days, Ren Wanyun had been comforting Chen Qing to prevent her from having the idea of committing suicide. As for how to comfort her, Qin Roqiu could think of it. It was nothing more than to promise Shan Miao what kind of miserable ending she would end up in. As for Shen Miao, she did not know from where she heard that old Shen Foreign had secretly accepted the Wei family's Gung invitation, and from that day onwards, she changed her previous silence and resisted like crazy, even threatening to resist the marriage and even run away from it. When these words were heard by old Shen Foreign, it was not good. Ren Wanyun and old Shen Foreign were thinking that now the unruliness in Shan Miao's bones was gradually revealed. What she said about resisting the marriage and escaping was indeed something that could be done. But now that Shen Miao must not meet with any mishap, once something happened to her, the matter of changing the marriage with the Shen sisters would not be possible. Thus, from the moment Shan Miao threatened to resist the marriage, old Shen Foreign and Ren Wanyun directly locked Shen Miao in the ancestral hall. The ancestral hall was at the most southwest courtyard of the Shen residence, and generally no one could see it. The number of guards outside had increased by at least half, and all the maids in the western courtyard, including Shen Miao's 4 personal maids, were found out by old Shen Foreign and held tightly in her hands. Chapter 133. The unspoken meaning was that if Shen Miao made a move, these few maids would not be able to protect her. Thus these days Shen Miao had been locked up in the Shen family's ancestral hall, chanting and praying daily. Ren Wanyun hoped to use this to grind down Shen Miao's unruly character, and also to prevent any accidents. Today was old Shen Foreign's birthday, and if Shen Miao was released, one was afraid that she would say something shocking in public. Thus, after discussing with old Shen Foreign, they simply did not allow Shen Miao to appear in front of everyone. Thinking of Shen Miao, Ren Wanyun had some headaches. She had been immersed in the mansion for so many years, but now she could not even tell what a young lady was thinking in her heart. To say that Shen Miao was an idiot, but she quietly schemed against everyone regarding Shan Qing's matter. To say that she was calm, but she did not conceal the fact that she was going to escape the marriage. She could only be locked up. After Qin Roqiu finished admiring Ren Wanyun's wonderful expression, she smiled and said, "Qing-er's health has not recovered and will not come out now. She will come out during old Foreign's birthday ceremony. However, Sister Miao has contracted an illness and cannot be exposed to the wind as there is a rash on her face. There are so many young ladies present, and one was afraid that this young lady would be infected, so one let her stay in the room by herself. If it was said that Shen Miao had contracted an illness, it would be inevitable that someone would want to investigate and take a look, but if it was said that this illness could cause others to contract it, naturally no one would dare to ask about Shen Miao. Especially since the young ladies love to be beautiful, how would they take such a big risk to look at her? Jiang Shaoxin's mother, Jiang Furen, also smiled, and her words had a hint of probing. So it is like this. I thought that the two young ladies were busy embroidering the dowry and were not even willing to see us. Wan Yun must take good care of the young ladies so that in the future when they marry, there would not be any delay. Finishing speaking, it immediately attracted the echoes of the surrounding Furens. The marriage between the Wei and Huang family had spread like wildfire in the Ding capital, but unfortunately the Xin family had never confirmed it. This made one feel somewhat strange, and there were quite a number of people who came to sound it out. As for which young lady would be married to whom, it was still a complete mystery. As a result, Madame Jiang had decided to ask this question. She wanted to see if this rumor of a marriage could really be carried out. Ren Wan Yun's eyes flashed and naturally knew Jiang Furen's intention. She said with a smile, "What are you saying? Even if one is busy with embroidering the wedding dress, if it is old Furen's birthday, one will naturally come out to show filial piety. If it was not that the two children are unluckily ill, why would one not come out to see all the Furens?" His words were full of ambiguity, as if he was admitting to this marriage. The Furens present were all experienced people in the residence, and were able to understand Ren Wan Yun's meaning. In a short moment, words of congratulations were heard. Old Shun Furen caressed Shun Yuan Bo's face with a loving smile, looking like the host and guest were enjoying themselves. In the garden of Qiushui Garden, there was a group of young girls. They were playing chess on a green stone table, eating snacks, and chatting. Speaking of which, Jiang Shaoxin said, "I haven't seen your elder and younger sister until now. Could it be that they are really sick?" "They are really sick." Shen Yu shook her head, and there was a trace of worry in her eyes. Eldest sister's illness is getting better, but fifth younger sister's illness is somewhat serious. The rash on her face even infected the few maids beside her. She hung her head down. "When you all came today, one fear that you did not even see the maids beside them." No wonder. Bai Wei was suddenly enlightened. There are so many people guarding outside the western courtyard, and one did not see anyone coming out. One think that those servants in the courtyard are afraid of coming out and getting infected. Did not Teacher Pei in the academy say that there were places with plague, and in order to prevent the plague from wreaking havoc everywhere, those who got sick were isolated? It is precisely this logic. Shun Yu said. Pei Lan touched her shoulders and shivered. It is really scary. It better not get infected on us. Do not worry. Shen Yu smiled. As long as one does not go to the western courtyard, naturally it will be safe. You see, am I not infected? You are really broad-minded to stay together with this kind of younger sister. Pei Lan's lips twitched. Why is this Shan Miao like a jinx, always having such things happen? On the other side, Feng and Ning's eyes flashed with anger, but she suppressed it and scolded softly. One do not know if this is to make Shen Miao hate others, or to make others hate her. Really pretentious. She was naturally talking about Shen Yu. Qin Qing, who was at the front of Feng and Ning, snorted coldly. Her face was still arrogant, but the gaze she used to look at Shen Yu was filled with contempt. Out of the two of them, Feng and Ning's relationship with Shen Miao was not bad, so naturally she was excluded by Shen Yu. As for Qin Qing, she was born beautiful and had an arrogant temperament. In Guangwentang, she was considered as Shen Yu's opponent. Today it was Shen Yu who came to greet the various daughters, so Qin Qing was naturally ignored. Thus these two people were actually able to sit together due to a freak combination of factors. Who knows if she is sick or not? Qin Qing had always looked down on Shen Yu, and when these words were heard by Feng and Ning, she immediately said, "So you also think so? Why not let us go and see Shen Miao? I do not have any friendship with her. If you want to go, go by yourself." Qin Qing rejected without hesitation and added, "But currently no one is allowed to enter the western courtyard of the Shun residence, as one is afraid of getting a rash. One think that you will not be able to enter." How can there be such a thing? Feng and Ning was filled with righteous indignation. They are all granddaughters of the Shin residents, so why can't Shin Miao also participate in old Shin Foreign's birthday celebration? To lock one up in the western courtyard, is it not any different from being in jail? It is better for you not to bother about other people's matters. Qin Qin glanced at Feng and Ning. After all, it has nothing to do with you and me. Feng and Ning bit her lips unwillingly, but was unable to say anything. She could only stare hatefully at Shin Yu, who was surrounded by the crowd and chatting merrily. But no one saw that in the shade of the trees, a figure flashed and quickly disappeared into the flowers. The northwest corner of the Shen residence was a barren courtyard, and because the terrain was not good and there were many weeds growing there, it was directly abandoned. Other than the occasional birds that flew by and the wild cats that were resting, usually no one would come over. Today there were a few people standing under the wall. The person in the lead had his back facing the garden, and one did not know what he was thinking about. Someone behind said, "Master, this subordinate passed by the eastern courtyard of the Shen residence and heard that there are people guarding the western courtyard." Another person, however, said, "This subordinate had checked, and there are only people guarding the western courtyard, and the guards are not here. But outside the Shun residence's ancestral hall, there are many experts guarding. Could it be a diversion?" That person turned his head and revealed a handsome face. "The thing is in the Shun residence's ancestral hall?" Chapter 134. The eastern courtyard of the general's residence was naturally very lively. Guests came and went, those who wished for the birthday and those who sent gifts. Before the banquet had even started, there was already a joyous and harmonious look. Old Shun Foreign always had to pretend to be extravagant in front of outsiders. Whenever a young lady came forward to offer birthday congratulations, she would always give out some valuable first meeting gifts. Seeing this scene, the smiles on those Furin's faces became more genuine, but Ren Wanyun secretly gritted her teeth. Ren Wanyun was in charge of the public money, and usually she had to manage the affairs of the third household. The more old tie-dye squandered, the less she could fill her own pockets. Moreover, Xingue still had to make arrangements in the official circles, so one feared that in the following days, money would be stretched to make ends meet. This side was extraordinarily lively, but the other side was not. At the southwest corner of the Shan residence's ancestral hall, it was currently deserted, and outside the courtyard doors, there were some people dressed as guards. It was just an ancestral hall, so naturally there was no need for such a lineup. The reason for this was because these people were responsible for watching Shen Miao, so that she would not escape. The ancestral hall was located in a cold place, and one would not be able to see the sun for many years. Now that it was winter, one would feel the bone-piercing cold wind upon walking in. There was a smell of incense ashes in the air, and the incense in front of the shrine was still curling up, making those cold memorial tablets feel like they were riding on the clouds. "Young lady." Guyu rubbed her hands. "Today is Old Foreign's birthday, but they deliberately locked young lady here. This is too much of a bully." Not to mention asking Shen Miao out, there was not even a word of greeting. It was simply treating Shen Miao as a servant who had made a mistake. What is the hurry? Shen Miao stood in front of the window, and outside the window were trees with withered leaves. In the winter, the bare branches looked exceptionally bleak. How can young lady not be anxious? Guyu had been holding it in for so many days and finally could not help but say, "They locked young lady here, and it is clearly to force a marriage." When master and foreign return, young lady would have already married into the Huang family. Even if master and foreign protect young lady's life would be ruined. Jingzhi kept fiddling with the charcoal brazier on the ground. In the cold ancestral hall, only this charcoal brazier could give out some warmth. A small bed was placed in the inner room. Shin Miao shook her head. "Take the few blankets in this room and dry them outside for 2 hours. Young lady." Guyu stomped her feet and was somewhat anxious at Shin Miao's nonchalant attitude. But after being swept by Shin Miao's gaze, he could no longer speak and could only suppress his anger as he carried the quilt out of the room and followed Shin Miao's instructions to dry the quilt outside. Today is a rare day. Shin Miao looked out the window. The sunlight could not reach the ancestral hall, only the courtyard. She couldn't leave the courtyard of the ancestral hall, but she didn't want to leave either. Young lady said so. Jingja finally stopped fiddling with the charcoal in the basin. Will Master and Foreign really rush back today? Shin Miao told Jingja that there was naturally no need to worry about anything because on the day of old Shin Foreign's birthday, Shin Xian and wife would return to the Ding capital. Even though these words were too ridiculous, there was no messenger to inform that Shin Xian would return to the capital today, and there was still some time before the end of the year. Shin Miao was locked up in the ancestral hall every day, so how would she get such news? But when Jingja faced Shin Miao, she was unable to ask the questions in her heart. In her own young lady, she found a bearing that she did not have in the past. One point was that the words that she said would always make others believe without any conditions. Shin Miao said, "In a while, think of ways to entangle those guards outside and make them stay further away from this courtyard. After all, they would not leave directly, but it is also good to stay further away." Chapter 135. This servant understands, Jingja said, even though she did not know why Shin Miao would do this. But these days in the ancestral hall with Shin Miao, she found that Shin Miao was not flustered by the scene in front of her. There were two reasons why one would not panic in a bad situation. One was that one was stupid and did not know about it, and the other was that one already had a strategy to deal with it. As for Shin Miao, Jingja did not think that she was stupid. So even if her heart was as worried as Guyu, Jingja unconditionally believed that Shin Miao would be able to deal with the situation in front of her. Shin Miao noticed her gaze and sighed slightly in her heart. Among her four maids, Guyu was the most intelligent, Bai Lu the most calm, Shuangjiang the most loyal, and Jingja was the most daring. In the beginning, in order to help Fu Xiuyi win over the powerful minister, Jingja used her beauty to become the concubine of that powerful minister. The powerful minister was lustful for beauty, and Jingja also had her methods. Even though she was beaten to death by the legitimate wife, but before she died, she gave out the weakness of that powerful minister, allowing Fu Xiuyi to win over the other party. As a maid, she actually had such courage. Jingja was not an ordinary young lady. So in this matter, Guyu, Bai Lu, and Shuangjiang were not suitable, and only Jingja was slightly better. But after Jingja knew what she wanted to do, Shin Miao did not know if she would continue to help. After all, what she was about to do was simply too shocking. Actually, Jingja endured it, but still said softly, "If young lady wants, it is not impossible to let Mo Qing think of ways to bring young lady out." Mo Qing's skills were above the guards of the general residence. Even though two fists could not fight against four hands, it was not impossible to grab a gap and bring someone out. And then, Shin Miao asked back, "The heavens and earth are so big. Would the world be at peace after escaping? The four of your slave contracts are in old foreign's hands. If I leave, what will happen to you?" Jingja knelt down on the ground and said, "This servant knows that young lady is willing to stay here because of these servants' lives. But if young lady were to suffer misfortune because of these servants, this servant would not be able to absolve the blame even if I were to die 10,000 times. In the beginning, Master and Madam chose us to stay by young lady's side so that we could take care of young lady. How could we let Master take care of us instead?" A trace of emotion flashed in Shin Miao's eyes. Shin Xian was indeed very good at picking people. These four maids, even in her most difficult times in her previous life, there was never a trace of betrayal. However, people were not goods. Things in this world were just that simple. Kindness must be repaid, and enmity must be repaid. In order to win over people's hearts, one couldn't just give up on the maids by one side. "Do not worry," Shin Miao said. "Nothing will happen to you and me. Today is Lao Foreign's birthday. I heard that second sister made a guanine painting for grandmother. Since they have forgotten that I am here, I can't let it go." She smiled. "I also have a big gift for old madam, but I don't know if she has the fortune to enjoy it." Dozens of li away from the Ding capital, there were horses drinking water by the frozen stream. The withered grassland looked somewhat yellow and withered, and the soldiers were taking a rest here. Sitting furthest away from the group of soldiers was a middle-aged man. His skin was bronze in color. Most likely it was because of the sun and rain on the battlefield, but it was clear that he was strong. His figure was like a small mountain, and his brows were awe-inspiring. With thick eyebrows and big eyes, he had a full beard, and with one glance, he looked extremely forthright. The female sitting beside him was stroking the head of the horse that was gnawing on the grass roots. That female was also middle-aged and was wearing a green short jacket and a pair of golden embroidered breeches. Her hair was tied up in a simple bun, and she had a pair of spirited eyes. She was also delicate and pretty, but what attracted people to her was her valiant and formidable-looking temperament. There was a pair of silver bracelets on her wrist, and when she stroked the horse, there was a tinkling sound. Chapter 136. Foreign. There is approximately another 2 hours before reaching the Ding capital. The middle-aged man smiled. After staying in the northwestern region all day, the air is sweet when one returns to the capital. What is not good about the northwestern region? The woman's beautiful eyes stared and asked rather shrewdly, I grew up in the bitter cold of the northwestern region. If you like it sweet, why did you marry me? That man quickly begged for mercy with a bitter face. Foreign is right. This capital is sweet and not suitable for us rough men. It is still better in the northwestern region. When winter comes, one can still go hunting in the deep mountains. Silver foxes can run around, and one can hunt and make robes for Foreign. When the woman heard it, her lips then raised and scolded with a smile, speaking official words when meeting an official. These two people were not others but the formidable great General Shen Xian and his foreign, Luo Shuiyan. Today they rushed back in a hurry to participate in Old Shun Foreign's birthday celebration. Before this, they did not inform the Ding capital, and because they had obtained the enemy's surrender letter in advance, returning triumphantly this early was most likely to give everyone in the capital a surprise. We have never seen Mother's birthday celebration before, Luo Shuiyan said. In the past, one would return at the end of the year to hand over Mother's rewards from His Majesty as a birthday gift. Today one is in a rush to return. One do not know if that fire rat cloak would be able to enter old Tai Tai's eyes. Why can't it enter old Tai Tai's eyes? When Shen Xian heard it, he immediately asked back, that is a good thing. Even on the battlefield, it is a treasure. With it, one would be invulnerable. In the beginning, in order to hunt that fire rat, I had to guard the mountain for 7 days and 7 nights. If it was not that you insisted on giving it to Mother, I would give it to you. Speaking till the end, Shen Xian's voice gradually lowered. Obviously these words were somewhat disobedient, but a person's heart was not a scale, and there would always be a biased part. Even though Old Shun Foreign treated Shen Xian very well, but after all she was not his biological mother and the blood relationship could not be faked. Thus Shen Xian naturally doted on his wife a little more. Moreover, Luo Shuiyan usually followed him to the battlefield, and this fire rat cloak was more useful to her than Old Shen Foreign. If it was not that Luo Shuiyan insisted on giving it to Old Shen Foreign, Shen Xian would have made the cloak for Luo Shuiyan first. What do you know? Luo Shuiyan glared at him. You miss old Tai Tai's birthday every year. Even if you return at the end of the year and give the rewards from His Majesty to old Tai Tai, who would really know? The last time when we returned to the capital, I heard that you deliberately did not kiss old Tai Tai's birthday. How did you know that I heard? That you deliberately did not kiss. If you aren't worried about your reputation, Jiao Jiao can't have an unfilial father. When the words were said, Shen Xian was silent for a long time. Indeed, even though the conditions in the Ding capital was not as harsh as the northwestern region, and there were no traps of the enemy's swords and spears, but it was not really peaceful. Of them husband and wife were not in. Of the rumors. That was. The was. Were dong. Luo Shuiyan said again. You know that I do not understand the twists and turns of the residents. Our Luo family does not have so many rules. I can only use the simplest way. This fire rat cloak is precious, and if old Tai Tai's favor is obtained, old Tai Tai would be happy and everyone would see it. The rumors would naturally fall apart. After a long while, Shen Xian then said, It is still Foreign who is thoughtful. I am not doing it for you. It is for Jiao Jiao. Luo Shuiyan snorted, and her expression suddenly became melancholy. You and I, husband and wife, are not in the Ding capital all year round. Even though the northwest region is too dangerous and Jiao Jiao is still young and cannot be brought over. But for so many years, we have not personally taught and accompanied her. It is us who have let her down. When Shin Xian heard it, he also sighed and hung his head down. A flash of pain appeared in his eyes. There were no cruel parents in the world, and there were no parents who did not love their children. However, he and Luo Shuiyan were destined to fight on the battlefield, and Shen Miao could not accompany them. When the two armies fought, the methods were dazzling, and there were many cases of kidnapping each other's relatives and friends. They could only endure the pain and be separated from their daughter. At least in the Ding capital, there was no need to worry about Shen Miao's safety. Chapter 137. Luo Shuiyan seemed to get sadder the more she thought about it and continued. I often think if it is really safe to place Jiao Jiao in the capital. Without parents by her side, is she really happy? Every year when we meet her at the end of the year, she would always treat us coldly, but it is all our fault. So no matter what she does, we cannot blame her. Shen Miao was not close to Shen Xian and wife and even Shen Qiu because these so-called relatives did not accompany her since young. She was close to Ran Wanyun, Shen Roqiu, and even old Shen Foren because these people were with her all the time and they were the relatives in her eyes. And Shen Xian and wife were extremely obedient to their daughter, and no matter how famous Shen Miao's stupidity was in the capital, they never got angry at their daughter because it was all because of them. Shen Xian patted Luo Shuiyan's shoulder. There will be a day when Jiao Jiao will understand our difficulties. Will she really understand? Luo Shuiyan smiled bitterly. Sometimes I would even think, who was the one that caused Jiao Jiao to be so mischievous now? Shen residence. She suddenly stopped and looked at Shen Xian with some annoyance. Shen Xian naturally understood the meaning behind her words, and his expression changed slightly. After a moment, he sighed and held his beloved wife's hand. Foreign is thinking too much. Mother and younger sister-in-law will teach Jiao Jiao well, and if it is not right, Jiao Jiao would not be so close to them. Shen Miao's attitude towards the two aunts was so good that it made one jealous. As a result, some thoughts were out of place. It is me who is thinking too much, Luo Shuiyan said. She was the precious daughter of the Northwest Luo family and was also a military family. Even though she was a third-rank military official, everyone in the family were iron-blooded men. Luo Shuiyan was the youngest sister and had 3 older brothers above her. So since she was born, there were only her parents and older brothers in the family, and there were not many dirty things. She had seen little of the dark side of the large families and did not know the dangers involved. If one knew about it, one would rather let Shen Miao take the risk and stay by her side than to leave Shen Miao alone in that terrible Shen residence. Just as she was speaking, she heard someone calling from behind. Father, mother. Shen Xian's face sank and said angrily, when there are people outside, call me General Shen. The person who came quickly said, ignore your father. Luo Shuiyan rolled her eyes at Shen Xian, pretending the newcomer was a young man in his 20s. He had a dignified appearance with wheat-colored skin and 2 dimples when he smiled, which added to his childishness. This youth looked similar to Luo Shuiyan and was Shen Xian's son, Shen Qiu. Shen Qiu was 22 this year and was brought to the battlefield by Shen Xian when he was 10 years old. It was said that a strict teacher produces an outstanding disciple. Shen Qiu was also brave and fierce. After so many years, he had earned a few meritorious deeds. Now, he was a rank 4 minor general. Dad, Mom, I've already given you your birthday gift. What should I give? Shen Qiu scratched his head, feeling a little lost. This little brat. What gift are you giving? Why are you asking us? As a man, if you can't even make a decision on such a small matter, then why are you going to the battlefield? Shen Xian seized the opportunity to scold his son. I haven't been to Grandma's birthday party for a long time. Shen Qiu said awkwardly. I also don't know what to send. I can't possibly report how many enemies I killed. Birthday parties are inauspicious. Luo Shuiyan was amused by Shen Qiu's words. It is nothing. Previously did His Majesty not reward you with a bolt of heaven silk brocade? You can give that to old foreign. I heard that there is a shortage of this heaven silk brocade in the Ding capital, and even the ladyships in the palace do not have it. If old foreign is able to get one bolt, naturally she would be happy. Chapter 138. But that's for my younger sister, Shinshio hurriedly said. Forget it. Shin Exine waved his hand. Have you ever seen your sister like that kind of brocade? Even if Shin Exine did not know about the vulgar things of females, he knew that this daughter of his did not like those elegant materials and only liked to wear gold and silver, the more vulgar the better. Even though he was helpless, he could only let Shun Miao be happy. Even though the Tianxi brocade was beautiful, it did not mean that Shin Miao would appreciate it. When Shun Xiu heard this, he felt that his father's words were reasonable. He lowered his head and squatted down before saying softly, "This time I came back in a hurry and did not bring any gifts for younger sister. Thinking about it, I feel guilty." In fact, Shin Xiu and Shun Miao had a very good relationship in the past. The two siblings supported each other and lived happily. But afterwards, Shun Xiu would follow Shin Xian to war every year and would only see Shun Miao once a year. Afterwards, Shun Miao's temperament worsened year by year, and the siblings almost had nothing to say. No matter how Shin Xiu tried to get close to this younger sister, Shin Miao would always treat him lukewarmly. Shin Xiu did not know the reason, but Shin Miao knew. Actually, it was Shin Yu and Shin Qing, as well as Gue Momo, who indirectly reminded Shin Xian and wife that they only brought Shun Xiu by their side. It was obvious that they valued males more than females. Sons were able to carry on the family line, so they valued them more and did not value their daughters as much. Shin Miao was still young and was easily affected by a few words. Looking at this older brother again, she naturally felt that he had snatched away all the love and care from her parents and was very hateful, so she was not willing to be close to him. Forget it. Shin Exine patted the dust off his body and stood up. Tell those brothers to get up and continue on the journey. One must return to the Ding capital after an hour. As time passed, the Shun residence's birthday banquet was about to begin. All the Furins and young ladies were already seated, and there were more than 10 tables. Old Shun Foreign's reputation was big enough that with this kind of extravagance, all the officials Furins in the Ding capital who had a little bit of rank were here. Of course, the reason why everyone came to this banquet was not because of old Shin Foreign's face, but because of Shun Xian's reputation. Even so, the birthday banquet was still lively, just like in previous years. Shin Yu was wearing a 100-pleated Rui moon dress, and the moon-white color made her look extremely gentle and quiet. She was originally delicate and pretty, and after specially dressing up today, she naturally had the intention of having a daughter in her family who had just matured. Now that Shin Qing and Shin Miao already had families, the Furins present all had their own thoughts when they saw Shin Yu. Naturally, they were planning to marry the second young lady of the third household into the residence, and how much benefits they could reap. After the male guests had delivered their gifts, they were all on the other side, accompanied by the two brothers Shin Gue and Shun Wan. Shin Gue and Shun Wan naturally wouldn't give up on this chance to win over people's hearts. They chatted and laughed, making it very lively. Old Master Su held his wine cup and felt a headache in his heart. His family had a good relationship with the residents of the Marquis of Lin, and the Shin family and Xie family had always been at odds, but the Shin family sent him an invitation. Master Su was a good person. Since they sent an invitation, he couldn't just reject it. He could only bite the bullet and participate. In his heart, however, he was somewhat envious of his eldest son who was bedridden. At least he didn't have to watch this group of old foxes with ulterior motives toasting each other and testing each other. Father. Su Minglang blinked his eyes. Today he was also dressed up by his mother, but even so, he looked like a very well-dressed dumpling. He pulled Master Su's sleeves. I want to go out for a walk. Don't run around, Master Su warned. Even though the eldest son did not participate, the youngest son, who had never been interested in these things, was clamoring to participate, and Master Su did not know why. But Su Minglang made a big fuss, and Su Foreign agreed, so Master Su could only bring along this little burden. Chapter 139. Su Minglang felt wronged as he put down his hands. He heard that this was old Shun Foreign's birthday banquet, which was Shun Miao's grandmother's birthday banquet. Thinking that he had not seen Shin Miao and Guangwen Tang for such a long time, he was very concerned. He originally wanted to take this opportunity to see Shin Miao, but who knew that Shin Miao did not even show her face today. Hearing that Shin Miao had a rash and could not casually meet others, Su Minglang's heart was itching and wanted to see Shin Miao. He had very few friends and others despised him for his stupidity. Only Shin Miao treated him gently, and in his heart, Shin Miao was already his only friend. Outside at the female side of the banquet, Jiang Foreign laughed and jeered. Speaking of which, Huang Foreign and Wei Foreign, shouldn't you all specially toast old Foreign with a cup of wine? After all, in the future they would be in-laws. These words were not said out, but all the Furins at the banquet were well aware of it. Huang Foreign was a noble foreign with exquisite makeup and only smiled when she heard it. One could not tell what she was feeling. Most likely she was well aware that this marriage was just taking what one needed and was not considered a good marriage. If the Shin family really doted on their daughter, they would be so righteous and would not agree to this marriage. The so-called bright and noble was just an act on the surface. Thus there was some ridicule in their eyes. It was Wei Foreign who was somewhat uncomfortable. The Shin family was indeed a good family, and climbing up to the Shin family was considered climbing up a high branch, but the previous Shen Miao was too stupid and could not be the matriarch of the household. Afterwards, after the academy examinations, she went around and heard that Shen Miao seemed to be enlightened, and her temperament was much more calm. Then she went to propose for her son. But who knew that she did not see Shin Miao today, and heard that Shin Miao had a rash? Wei Foreign was somewhat worried that if Shen Miao contracted a nasty disease, it would ruin her son's life. Thinking of these, her face revealed an unwilling expression. When these expressions fell into Chen Rochio's eyes, Chen Rochio sneered a few times in her heart. She was not a fool and could see that Ren Wanyun had the idea of exchanging sisters' marriages. Old Chen Foreign and Ren Wanyun could hide it from others, but they could not hide it from her, Chen Rochio. However, this was a good thing for her. Ren Wanyun was in a mess from her worries and did not know how Shen Xian would fly into a rage when he returned. At that time, the first and second branches will be fighting, and each of them will be injured. Her Yu-Er will be able to stand out from the crowd. Ren Wanyun smiled as she stood up. Since that is the case, then I should first toast both Furins with a cup. Everyone's laughter became louder, and Feng and Ning frowned as she looked somewhat unhappy. At the other end of the ancestral hall, after sending away all the maids, Shen Miao knelt in front of the memorial tablet in the ancestral hall and looked at the hourglass in her hands. The sand had almost leaked out, and the time that she had arranged with her was almost up. She inserted the 3 sticks of incense into the niche and bowed gently. However, at this moment, he heard a slight noise. In her previous lifetime, in the Qing country for a few years, she had developed the habit of being extremely vigilant no matter what. Shin Miao suddenly stood up and said, "Who? Little girl, your senses are quite sharp." A familiar voice sounded. Shin Miao turned her head and saw that purple-clad youth leaning against the window, looking at her with a smile that was not a smile. Seeing that she was looking at him, he leaped into the ancestral hall. No matter how calm Shin Miao was, she could not help but be somewhat stunned. Xie Jingxing actually wandered around other people's residence in broad daylight. Naturally, he was not invited over as the Shin family and Xie family's relationship was like walking on thin ice, unless Shin Gui and Shin Wan were crazy. Now there were guards in the courtyard outside the ancestral hall, so how did he enter? Shin Miao accidentally asked out the doubts in her heart. The guards of the Shen residence are really useless. Xie Jingxing said, I walked over. Chapter 140. Shin Miao frowned. What are you here for? Xie Jingxing, however, smiled and did not bother with her. He seemed to be searching for something in the room, and in less than the time it took for an incense stick to burn, he had finished searching. But the result was obviously not satisfactory as he did not find anything. Shin Miao stared at his every move and suspicion grew in her heart. Xie Jingxing's appearance was like he came to the Shun residence to look for something. But what was the thing in the general residence that was worth him to be a gentleman on the beam and take such a big risk to personally search for it? Was there anything else that she did not know? What are you looking for? Say it, and I can help you find it. Shin Miao opened her mouth. Xie Jing's actions paused for a moment and turned his head to look at her inquisitively before speaking with interest. Shen family's girl. I know that in the Shen family, you are the smartest, but it is better not to have any ideas on me. Then you came to my house to steal things in broad daylight. Is it considered as having ideas on the Shen family? Shun Miao was unmoved, but her heart was somewhat annoyed with Xie Jingxing's watertight defense. She gave in because she wanted to know what it was. In the end, this person was so vigilant and did not give her any chance. Steal? Xie Jingxing seemed to have heard something funny, and his beautiful peach blossom eyes revealed a dangerous glint. That is originally this marquis's thing, and can only be considered as taking. Shin Miao's heart moved and seemed to have caught something, but that thought disappeared too quickly that she was unable to capture it. But Xie Jingxing glanced at the ancestral hall. There are so many people guarding here, and I thought that it was to protect something. So it is to watch over you. He looked at Shin Miao and crossed his arms. What mistake did you commit that there are so many people locking you up? The ancestral hall is not a place where an eldest young lady should stay. What does it have to do with you? Shin Miao looked at the hourglass, and the last bit of sand had flowed from the top to the bottom. The time was almost up, but Xie Jingxing had not left. Her patience had run out, and she said, "Since little Marquis did not find your thing, then please leave. The ancestors of the Shun family are not willing to see a gentleman on the beam." The sarcasm in her words was that no one dared to speak to Xie Jingxing like that ever since he was born. Moreover, it was a little girl. But he didn't get angry and only ridiculed. Indeed, the Chen family's ancestor isn't willing to see this marquis, but is willing to see his descendant being forced into marriage. It can be considered lively. "You are not willing to marry Wei Qian?" he asked. "What do you want?" "So what if I am not willing?" Shin Miao retorted. "Wei Qian can be a good man, but you aren't a good wife. You picked him up. This is the first time I've seen someone who doesn't know what's good for them." He narrowed his eyes, and the devilish smile on his lips was so handsome that it was dazzling. He said frivolously, "Could it be that you admire this marquis, so you are unwilling to marry Wei Qian?" Shin Miao was so angry that she almost laughed. She turned her head and stared at Xie Jingxing. "If you think like this, there is nothing wrong with me. I only advise little Marquis to not get involved in some matters. Otherwise, when you regret it, it would be too late." Her complexion was somewhat pale, probably because she had not been eating and sleeping well in the ancestral hall these days. She had become thinner, but it made the outline of the young girl even more distinct. Her chin had become pointy, and her eyes were incomparably clear. But Xie Jingxing could see a fire burning in them. "Young lady." Jingzhe ran in and jumped in shock when she saw Xie Jingxing. She suddenly protected Shun Miao behind her and pointed at Xie Jingxing. You, how did you come in?" Xie Jingxing shrugged his shoulders and did not answer. "Just treat it as if he is not here." Shin Miao was too lazy to care about him and asked Jingzhe, "How is your arrangement?" Chapter 141. I let Ginkgo in the courtyard to buy food and wine, saying that it was sent over from the birthday banquet. At this moment they are eating happily and slacking off a little, but it is impossible to leave. Jingzhe was still somewhat afraid of Xie Jingxing and was looking at Xie Jingxing's expression as she spoke. "Good." Shin Miao looked at Jingzhe. "Jingzhe, can you make me trust you?" When Jingzhe heard this, she did not even care about worrying about Xie Jingxing and immediately lowered her head. "This servant is loyal to young lady, and anything that young lady instruct, this servant will not refuse even 10,000 deaths." "Then you listen. No matter if it is you or Gu Yu or Bai Lu or Shuangjiang, later no matter what happens, do not come in. Do not look for me, and also do not stop me." She stuffed the hourglass into Jingzhe's hands. "When this lump of sand flows to here," she pointed to a small mark on the glass, "you go out and call people. You must take advantage of the chaos to rush out and directly rush to the Eastern Courtyard's birthday banquet and shout for people in front of all the guests. I think that you have an idea and are bold, so no matter if I instruct you or not, you will know what is the best thing to do." This, Jingzhe was somewhat at a loss as she did not understand what Shin Miao meant by these words. But when she saw Shun Miao's expression, all the questions were swallowed down, and she solemnly said to Shun Miao, "This servant will understand." "Good." Then you go out now. Shen Miao instructed with a dignified expression. Remember, no matter what you see or what happens, you are not allowed to come in. Jingzhe clenched her teeth and looked at Xie Jingxing before looking at Shen Miao again before nodding her head and turning to leave the ancestral hall. After Jingzhe left, Xie Jingxing then looked at Shen Miao and lazily said, "So mysterious. What do you want to do?" "What do I want to do?" Shen Miao stared at him. Xie Jingxing's posture was leisurely, but that pair of beautiful peach blossom eyes were as sharp as a knife. When that pair of eyes looked at one, it was as if one's thoughts could not be hidden. "If little Marquis does not want to be implicated by me, then leave first," she said coldly. "There is no one in this world that can implicate me." His words were arrogant, but it was as if he could really do what he said. "Since you want to be buried with me, I have nothing to say." Shen Miao turned around. Xie Jingxing frowned, and before he could understand the meaning of Shen Miao's words, he saw Shen Miao suddenly walking to the front of the incense niche and pausing in front of the Shen family ancestors' memorial tablets. In the next moment, even he was stunned at the same spot. Shen Miao suddenly picked up those neatly arranged tablets and threw them into the charcoal brazier on the ground without saying a word. Wood was easy to ignite. In an instant, the flame that had been burning a little soared into the sky. The tongue of fire swallowed the wooden memorial tablets, and the names on them were faintly discernible in the light of the fire. "Are you crazy?" Xie Jingxing looked at Shen Miao with surprise in his eyes. Destroying the ancestral tablets was an act of treason that could even lead to expulsion from the clan. After 100 years, his ancestors would not let him off even if he went to the Yellow Springs. And Shen Miao's sudden action made others puzzled. Was she venting her dissatisfaction from being locked up? But for her to do so, she would only receive a greater punishment in the future. Shen Miao's eyes coldly looked at the gradually charred tablets in the flame. It was not that she was disobedient, but the spirits of the ancestors could not be casually trampled. But the most important thing in the world was the present. Her future, Shen Xian's future, and the future of the Shen residents were obviously more important. If the ancestors knew that her action could resolve the crisis of the Shen family, their spirits in heaven would be gratified. "Little Marquis, it is not too late to leave now." Shen Miao did not pay attention to Xie Jingxing's surprise and threw a bunch of tablets into the brazier with a wah sound. In an instant, the flame became more intense. Chapter 142. But she did not seem to be satisfied. After thinking about it, she walked inside and took out the few quilts that Guyu had taken out to dry. The quilts were all cotton quilts and were just dried, so they were dry and soft. "Shen Miao," Xie Jingxing bellowed, "do you not want your life anymore?" Shen Miao spread all the quilts on the floor. Most of the ancestral hall structure was made of wood, and it was very easy to catch fire. She picked up a piece of spirit tablet that was half covered in flames and ignited a corner of the quilt. The flames soared to the sky, and the ancestral hall gradually emitted thick smoke. Jingzhe gritted her teeth as she stood outside, and her eyes were mostly red. It was until the sand in her hands flowed to the place that Shen Miao arranged, until the guards in the courtyard outside were alarmed by the flames, and all ran over to put out the fire, that Jingzhe then took the opportunity when no one was paying attention and ran out. She ran all the way to the eastern courtyard's birthday banquet in one breath. The entire courtyard was filled with guests who were enjoying themselves, and it seemed that no one had discovered this little girl who was in a sorry state. Jingzhe's lips pulled out a vicious smile and suddenly shouted, "Not good, not good. The ancestral hall is on fire and fifth young lady is trapped in the fire." When the words were spoken, there was an uproar in the courtyard. Was Shen Miao not recuperating in her own courtyard? Why was she in the ancestral hall? Everything was fine, so why did the water suddenly catch fire? Ren Yuan also jumped in shock. She suddenly stood up as she did not know how the ancestral hall caught fire. Just as she was about to order people to quickly put out the fire, she saw Jingzhe's panting appearance. She did not know why, but her heart suddenly moved. If Shen Miao died in this fire, then she could justifiably let Shen Qing marry in place of her. As for the Huang family's side, she only needed to pay a visit and apologize. And Shen Miao's death could only be attributed to an accident. who asked her to not recuperate properly and run to the ancestral hall, and even caused the ancestral hall to catch fire. Thus Ren Wanyun stood up and pretended to say, "Everyone eat and drink first. Most likely the fire is not too big. Most likely it was a child playing with fire and accidentally set the water on fire. I will go and take a look first. The few of you," she reprimanded Xiang Lan, "quickly go and find the guards to extinguish the fire." The atmosphere of the entire birthday banquet suddenly fell into a strange atmosphere. Old Shen Foreign was unhappy in her heart and hated Shun Miao for disappointing her mood even at this time. However, on the surface, she still had to put on a motherly appearance and anxiously instructed Ren Wanyun, "Quickly go and see what is Fifth Lady's situation." However, acting was different from being real. If one really loved Shen Miao, one would not be so calm when Shen Miao fell into such a situation. Chen Rochio and Shan Yu did not even leave their seats, which showed Shan Miao's status in the Shen residence. The Furins and young ladies present were not fools and could see what kind of attitude the people of the Shen residence had towards Shan Miao, and their hearts had some sympathy for Shen Miao. But just at this moment, a loud and clear laughter was heard from outside. "General Shen Foreign, young Master Shen has returned to the residence. Open the door to welcome the general." What? Not only the female guests, even the male guests at the other end were stunned. Shin Gue and Shan Wan looked at each other. Shin Xian returning to the residence? This must be a joke. There were still some days before the end of the year, and the ancestral hall that was surrounded by the flames was currently surrounded by a circle of Shan residence guards. They said to extinguish the fire, but they did not go in. Everyone cherished their own lives, and with the intensity of the fire, who would dare to go in and die? "Shin family's girl, do you want to die?" Xie Jingxing saw that the beams were starting to burn and frowned. "Little Marquis, it is better to leave quickly." Shin Miao did not move. "When there are more and more people, even if you want to leave, you will not be able to." "Less nonsense." Xie Jingxing grabbed her arm. "Go? Let go." Shin Miao broke free from his hand and her gaze was so firm that it was almost stubborn. "Can't you see? I am using my own life to gamble for a future." You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.